or we should be. What the heck? Hi, Minnesota. This is Christie Thompson with Christie Legal. I am a divorce and custody mediator and paralegal, and for the state of Minnesota only. And I help folks divorce and handle custody cases in a way that's less costly, less conflictual, and a lot shorter. Because I am a mediator and a paralegal, not an attorney. So that means that I can work with both parties. I help them reach decisions on all of the issues. And then I write joint divorce documents or custody documents for them and help them through the much shorter court process. My clients, if they don't have children, don't even have a court hearing. My clients who do have children have one court hearing, 10 to 20 minutes, and it's taken about 2 months to get the court hearing right now. So it's way easier than what you've seen on TV or what your friends or your family have experienced. If you are going to work with each other and work with me, it's going to be way easier and cost a lot less money. So part of what I do is reducing conflict. And so one of the people who helps people who are in conflict, sometimes with others and sometimes with their own emotions, of course, would be psychologists. And so I have here with me today a psychologist named Brittany Squillace. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly.
Yeah.
And Brittany, take it away.
Well, thank you, Christy. I'm excited to be here. Hello, everyone on Facebook Live and anywhere else you're viewing this. I'm excited to be here. So yes, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist for the state of Minnesota. So I can do a whole bunch of different things. So obviously I work with couples, that's my licensure, but I also focus a lot on grief. So you may be wondering, well, what does grief have to do with couples or divorce? And actually a lot. So it's not uncommon. Actually, it's very common for individuals who are going through divorce to experience what we call an ambiguous or living loss. So these are losses that don't involve death, which makes it a little bit more challenging because they typically don't get recognized by society or by the people around us. So then we don't know that we can even label it as grief or that it's something that we need to make space for to properly grieve. And one of the biggest ways that shows up is grieving the spouse. Not always, but that's one of the most common ways I'll see people grieve or have grief come up throughout the divorce process. And it's not so much, sometimes it is, but not always grieving the individual person. Especially if there's conflict or that the marriage wasn't healthy and it's good to be out of it, but more grieving what the marriage could have been, what the marriage was, who that person was, right? I'll get a lot of clients that say like, gosh, they're just not the same person I married. So we grieve that aspect. Another common way that grief shows up is the grief around the loss of identity. So a lot of people will say, I don't know who I am now that I'm not a partner, now that I don't have a spouse. Or, I got so wrapped up into my marriage, I just don't know who I am outside of that. So we do some grief work around some identity stuff within a divorce as well. So those are the two most common ways that I'll hear or see grief come up. And, we experience a lot of the same emotions that we would if we're grieving the death of a loved one, right? We feel sadness, confusion, anger, there might be some resentment. Sometimes there can be relief. But again, because it's not as recognized by society, we don't know to label it as such. So then we just sit there with those angers and sadness and frustration and just think, well, this is just a typical process of divorce. And sometimes maybe, but more often than not, we're grieving. So I like to create a space for people to do that work. First, identifying what is it that I'm grieving within the divorce, and then taking steps to help us do that grief work. And that can look different for everybody. So that's kind of a recap and kind of a synopsis of what I do with clients. Obviously, other things come up. I have worked with clients who are contemplating a divorce. and they're not sure if this is something that they want to do. So we talk about that too, right? Because there can be a lot of grief in that work as well. I always I've actually had couples come to me as well, some individuals, but then some couples. And I always let them know, whether individual or couple, that I'm not here to sway you one way or the other. I'm just here to get a better idea of where you're at and what you need. I can ask questions based on where I hear you're getting stuck, to kind of help you better navigate that and find answers around it. But never will I say, this is what you need to do, because that's just not my role. So I have worked with couples in those situations as well, kind of figuring out which way do we go. And then if they decide that divorce is the route, then I refer to somebody like Christie and help them so they can go along in the process and have a little bit easier path to something like that. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
I do have a question for you. When people are thinking about getting divorced, what's your process of how you help them decide that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if it's an individual, I mean, really it's, I guess, both with individuals or couples, I'll ask them, what are you noticing? What's not working? Basically what's leading you to this thought, right? Or what are you experiencing within your relationship that's making you go, this just really is not working? So we'll explore that. I'll ask them, what have you tried? What has worked? What hasn't worked? Some couples will just say, we haven't really tried anything, but this is the only option we know. So we'll talk about that of, are you interested in trying to make it work? Is that something you want to do? If not, okay, then we go that other route. So I kind of really just assess how they got there and where they're at within that process. How long have you had this thought? Is this something that kind of just surfaced, or is this something you guys have been battling with and kind of questioning for a while? And based on that, we kind of go from there. So I really just assess, and then based on where they're at, take the next best steps. And I always provide them with options. I let them know, if you're interested in working on it, we can commit to 3-4 months of therapy, and then we can kind of reassess in that time. I have worked with a couple of couples of, let's commit to 3 months. We can do a check-in. How are you feeling that this is going? If you feel like it's not working, then we reevaluate. I let them know, there's a mediation process if you don't want to go through a full court system and all of that. So we talk about their options as well, based on where they're at.
Oops. Awesome. And so on the flip side, do you do any premarital counseling, or is that something you refer to someone else to do?
I have done premarital counseling. The most common, I don't want to say exercise, the most common program I'll use is called Prepare Enrich. So basically what it is the couple will come to me. I typically like to have one session with them first, just to learn more about them, make sure we're a good fit, see where they're at in their process, what their history is, all that kind of stuff. And then I send both of the partners of the couple a little assessment, and it asks questions in various areas. So anything that would come up in marriage, finances, parenting, religion, travel, right? Just kind of extracurriculars, anything like that. They answer these questions on their own, totally separately. So they need to be in separate rooms. And then I get the results back from both couples. And then the following session, we talk about, here are your results. Here are the areas that you guys really align on. And here are the areas that maybe there is some disagreement that we might want to talk about. So we really focus on those areas that there may be some conflict. So then we spend a number of sessions going through each category and getting skills and different ways to talk about those areas. So that's usually the most common approach that I and other clinicians will go about premarital. But obviously it doesn't have to be that if the couple isn't interested. So yeah, premarital is definitely something I've done in the past. Absolutely.
And do you know any statistics about what percentage of people do premarital counseling before they get married?
I don't.
Okay.
No, yeah, sorry, I don't know that.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just, when I've been divorcing folks, I've been like, wow, you guys are so different and you have such different ideas about so many things that I just do not think that you went through premarital counseling.
Yeah. And
So
that's not
premarital
uncommon.
counseling is wonderful.
It is. And I kudos to any couple who does that. And that's not to shame couples who don't, but I've sat with a lot of couples and they've had a lot of it's around parenting issues or maybe finance issues. And I asked them, did you guys have conversation around these types of things prior to having kids or prior to combining finances? And they kind of sit there and they laugh and they go, oh, no. And that's so dumb. Like, why wouldn't we? I'm like, it's okay. It's actually very common that people don't. Right. And not because they're careless or anything like that. It's just they don't think about it until it actually becomes their reality. So I couldn't advocate for premarital counseling more, just so you can start having those conversations. So I applaud anybody who comes in and does it. And, I validate anybody who realizes like, no, we didn't do that. Maybe we should have, because that's very common. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. We don't want to shame people for things they
No,
haven't done.
no. Yeah.
And I should have asked you this before, but do you help people co-parent after the divorce or separation? Do you work with third parties like that ever?
I've done some work around it. I mean, I have no like specific certification or program or anything around it, but I have worked with some couples around providing skills and talking about what's the best way that we can co-parent. So typically that is one of the things we talk about too, of, okay, once you guys go through this process, our next step may then be in continuing to work together, we do co-parenting stuff. And I talk a little bit about what that means, what that looks like, why it's important. So yeah, I have worked with I actually have an individual right now who's in the process of a divorce, and we're talking about co-parenting, but unfortunately her co-parent isn't really interested. So she and I are doing a lot of the work individually, which is more challenging, but possible. So yes, I have done some co-parenting work as well.
That's awesome, because I think that is equally important to the marriage counseling, to see if the
Absolutely.
marriage could work, because you're going to be co-parenting with that person actually, forever. Because even after kids become adults, you still be at their wedding, graduations, they're this, that. And and that's good to know. Also that you can do the co-parenting counseling without the other person, because I would imagine a good percentage of the time, the person who feels there's a problem gets frustrated because the other person thinks there's no problem at all.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, that's not an uncommon dynamic at all. And obviously, I will say we do hit a point where it's like, unless if your co-parent is willing to kind of jump in with this, there's not a whole lot more we can do. But there is some stuff that we can do at the beginning to try to encourage some of that co-parenting. But the person who is trying to do the co-parenting will get frustrated because it's like, oh my gosh, like just help me out here, do your part, right? So we do kind of feel that feeling of being stuck. But there are still a lot of things we can do just as an individual. So it's not a lost cause if I can't get both of them in. So
awesome. That's so great. Thank you for all your information, Brittany. And Brittany's contact information will be in the post shortly, so that if you liked anything you heard, you can contact her and get help in any of the various ways that she can provide you with help during your separation or divorce.
I do offer a free 20 to 30-minute consultation as well. So if you're thinking, maybe, but I'm not really sure, give me a call. We can chat about it, talk about where you're at and how I might be able to help you. So I do offer that as well.
Awesome. And thank you for saying that, because I forgot to ask that too.
That's okay.
I'm just batting zero tonight.
Great.
So thanks for your time tonight, or today, or this morning, whenever you're watching, folks, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.